Hi there. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us here today. I'm Stephen Mayer. I am the chair of creative agency MBA Stack and also the chair of the DMA. We often talk about the DMA about the 3 R's that we try and deliver to our members. The first being around representation, and representation very much vis-a-vis the government, making sure that data-driven marketeers are represented in terms of GDPR, in terms of data protection, all those different areas in the work that we do. The other area we talk about quite a lot is about relationships, about our councils, our committees, and building networks and events. But the third R, which is very much we're going to focus on today, is about resources. And resources about providing our members with the very best resources they possibly can to do the fantastic jobs that they do. Whether that's around the IDM in terms of our award, in terms of our training, whether it's around the DFE and all the work that we do there, or whether it's around the fantastic best practice guides that we come out with. Now, today is a fantastic example of that, because we really have a wonderful piece of research and a white paper that we're going to unleash on you today. That's a great example, as our webinar is titled today, Exploring the Impact of Mail in an Attention-Scarce World. And the power of this long-standing medium, direct mail, is really what we're going to talk to you about today. What we're literally going to do, though, in our webinar today is we're going to basically bring it to life. The great news is that we have all the authors and the contributors on this webinar today who have put together this fantastic piece of work. And what we're going to do is we're going to unpack it. We're going to go deep into it. And quite frankly, there are so many fantastic results that have come out of this about the undivided attention that mail brings, the dwell time it brings, the power of ROI that it brings. And we're going to go into a lot of detail there. We're going to, our contributors, our authors are going to take us through the detail of how mail is making a phenomenal impact in this world where basically attention, as we know, is the new reach. Thank you very much to Royal Mail Marketreach, who've made today possible, and thank you for their sponsorship and their support behind this, and of course, as authors of this fantastic report. So the way the agenda is going to work today is we're going to have 10 minutes from our 4 speakers who are going to talk, as I say, about elements from the white paper and the report, and they're going to unpack it, go into detail on it, and I'll introduce them in a minute, and we're going to hear from each of those as we go through, and then we're going to come back at the end, and I'm going to ask some questions. Please put your questions into the question box, and I will do my best to answer and ask them as many of those questions as possible. Also, feel free to tweet, to post about this event as we go along. And if you have any problems with sound, please put those questions and those comments again into the question box, and we can do our best to deal with those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you now to our very first speaker today, which is very exciting to have with us one of our men behind this fantastic report today, and the effectiveness guru, that is Imad Ahmed, the head advisory EMEA in Americas for WARC Advisory. Having joined WARC, the Global Authority on Marketing Effectiveness, as marketing director in 2013. He's partnered with the likes of LinkedIn, with Spotify, with Royal Mail, Reckitt and De Beers to help them make their marketing, their teams more impactful. He's also presented at leading industry events such as Cannes Lion, Festival of Marketing, the IPAF Works, on topics such as fundamentals of effectiveness, creative excellence, and behavioral economics. So let me pass over to Imad, and then we'll come back and hear the others afterwards. Imad.
Thanks very much, Stephen, and hey everyone, good to have you with us. So as Stephen mentioned, I'm going to really an overview of some research that WARC launched in partnership with Marketreach towards the end of last year. And for those who don't know WARC, we've been helping brands, agencies and media owners around kind of marketing effectiveness research and evidence for nearly 4 decades. But when Marketreach approached us, we wanted to look together at not only the importance of attention within media planning, but also the potential role that mail could play within that media mix as brands kind of battle and vie for attention. Now, this wasn't the first time that WARC had partnered with Royal Mail, but back in 2021, we looked at the effectiveness of direct mail within the broader media mix. And over those last 4 decades, WARC has over 20,000 case studies of effectiveness. So these are campaigns that have been entered into awards. Many of those have won the awards, many have been shortlisted, but the bar is pretty high and they're all deemed to be successful. And what we wanted to look at there was those campaigns which were using direct mail either as lead media or within the mix versus the rest of the UK cases at that time. And even from that initial piece of research, we could see that direct mail was already well positioned to help brands around their different brand goals, their different performance goals. But the other theme that started to emerge was that these campaigns were also doing a really good job at capturing attention for longer periods of time than some of the digital channels that investment was moving more and more towards. Now, it's fair to say that since 2021, what's happened is that the body of evidence around attention has grown, and we're really lucky to be hearing from Mike Follett later and Lucy as well, who be able to share kind of their own perspectives on it. But this body of evidence that shows that relationship between meaningful media attention, sales, was something that has kind of grown, if you like, in volume within the industry. And what you can see from the chair is actually some of the research from Dentsu and Lumen. Now, part of that research shows that attention is 3 times a better predictor of outcomes like brand choice than pure viewability. So thinking about, as Stephen mentioned, kind of more reach-based planning, impressions-based planning. And one of the objective ways of measuring attention is around this idea of visual dwell time. So how much time is someone looking at the ad that's in front of them. And as we can see from these charts, when you increase visual dwell time, you're also able to see increases in recall of that brand, in choice, brand choices as well. And that's really important because brands that get remembered are more likely to be bought. So brands are forever battling to make their work memorable, refresh memory structures, and build mental availability. So that idea that how quickly does your brand come to mind when a consumer is in a buying situation within your category. And so we wanted to put that thinking to the test, really. Not only that thinking around attention as an additional filter for brands and their media agencies to consider when they're working out their media mix, but also with a focus on testing that relationship between mail and attention. And the findings were very striking. Now, the first major finding was that mail delivered extended dwell times. And for this, I think it's useful to start with some context. So Karen Nelson Field and her team at Amplified Intelligence, so it's another kind of forerunner, if you like, in the attention research that is out there, studied 130,000 digital ad views and found that 85% of those weren't getting the 2.5 seconds of active attention that you need to get to have any kind of impact on brand memory and then ultimately mental availability. Now, have that context in mind, because what Marketreach and then Blue Yonder did last year was they measured attention for mail using clickscape technology. So essentially, recipients of mail were asked to press a button when they started looking at the mail piece, press the button again when they stopped looking. And even from that research, we could see that against this context of 2.5 seconds that is required, direct mail was generating almost 3 minutes of attention. Now, you look at the Marketreach study, as kind of one set of figures behind this. JIC-mail, an industry standard, more conservative in their view. But even then, 7-day attention time from the JIC-mail numbers was around 1.5 minutes. And again, thinking of that in the context of the 2.5 seconds that's required to build any kind of brand memory. But it wasn't only that the dwell time was lengthy, it was also that the dwell time was undiluted, that attention was undivided. And this stands to reason when we think of ourselves as consumers. We're often trying to multitask when we consume media, whether it's scrolling through emails, looking at our phone when we're watching TV, whether it's kind of listening to podcasts while we're cooking, or whether it's driving while we're looking at out of home, when we have out of home billboards and so on around us. But that's a lot less pronounced when it comes to mail. And when we asked our respondents about where their concentration, where their focus was on receiving a mail piece, 63% told us that their sole attention was given to that mail piece. So as I mentioned, undiluted attention. There are various factors that might warrant that full concentration. It might be the tangibility of the mail piece. It might be the pure ritual of opening an envelope commands your active attention. It might be the type of information that we expect to receive when we're getting something through the post. But again, not only the lengthy dwell time, but the undivided nature of the attention stuck out to us. But mail was also able to drive uplifts across the funnel. Now here, when we looked at the 1,500 or so mail items that people receive, and we asked them what kinds of action or what kinds of sentiment did they respond to that mail piece with? And we saw that as we move through the funnel, and yes, the funnel is a lot more linear kind of way of looking at the buying process than is probably realistic, but it's still a useful construct. We could see that 16% were considering buying from that brand on the back of receiving the mail piece. So consideration, they might have discussed it with someone, they might have gone on the website for more information. 9% then were showing some kind of purposeful action, so whether that's planning the purchase or actually going to a shop. And then all the way to the 5% who showed some sign of transaction, so actually bought something, used the discount voucher that they were sent, or paid a bill. And then finally, we found that mail was doing, a strong job and had a potential strong role to play in amplifying other media in the mix. So as I mentioned, when we looked at across the UK case studies, those that use direct mail in the mix versus the other UK cases, we could see that those ones using DM in the mix were more likely to report on increases in market penetration, revenue, ROI, market share. So again, we see from the likes of the ARF, from analytic partners, that multimedia campaigns tend to work harder than single platform campaigns. And this data showed how mail could play a role in amplifying the messages and CTAs run across other channels, particularly digital ones. And Lucy will tell us a bit more about a great example of that later. So in that world where attention is the lifeblood of, you can see that mail delivered not only extended dwell times, undiluted attention across the funnel, but also was able to amplify other media in the mix. Now that's a quick whistle stop tour of the research. There's lots more of the research. So if you want to find out more around the white paper and what we uncovered, then you can either go to warc.com or marketreach.co.uk and find out more there. But thanks for your time. I'll hand back to Stephen. Thank you.
Imar, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. Well, that's fantastic data there to support the case for mail. Thank you very much for that. So now going to move from one of our authors, Imar, into one of the major contributors to this piece of work. And it's Mike Follett, Managing Director of Lumen Research UK. Mike is a CEO of Lumen, the leading attention technology company. Lumen has offices in the UK, in the US, in Spain, and use its eye tracking technology to optimize media buying and credit development for the world's leading brands, whether it's FMCG, telcos, and drinks brands. He started his career in advertising. He working for DDB in London, New York, and Mumbai before starting Lumen in 2013. Mike, over to you.
Hello everyone, thank you very much for that lovely introduction. Yes, I've got lots of data today to put things in context, and I should warn you beforehand, I do not have any data specifically about direct mail. But I think it's still important to be able to understand how attention to advertising works in general, so that we might be able to think about this, the specifics of direct mail. And I think you should be able to fill in the pieces here that point to the strength of this medium. So a little bit about attention first. Many of you will have kids, and many of you will be, as Easter coming, on the road, and I'm sure many of you will be playing I Spy. And I Spy is a fundamental sort of route into understanding what attention is, because you're driving along and you say, I spy with my eyes something beginning with C, and the game is that to understand that there is something out there beginning with C, a chimney or a cat or a car. It's viewable, it's there to be seen, but you might not catch it. That's the whole point of the game. And this means that kids driving around on the M1 probably have more understanding about how advertising works than many of their parents, or certainly many people who work in advertising or marketing. Because we in advertising often believe that just because something is there to be seen, it will automatically get looked at. And of course that is not the case. There is an enormous difference between things that are viewable and things that are actually viewed. Here's Times Square in the States. You've got all of these big posters here, all this out-of-home stuff. It's all viewable, but we just know that doesn't mean that everyone has attended to every single thing. And if you're an advertiser, you don't care really if everything else is viewable. You don't really care if your poster is viewable. What you really care is, did anyone look at it? And understanding the relationship between the opportunity to see something and actual attention is really, really important for many of the reasons that Anna just talked about. So this isn't just stuff that 5-year-olds know, it's also stuff that professors know. This man is here, Professor Wayne Wu, over at Carnegie Mellon, who's one of the leading theorists about what attention is. And his very simple definition is attention is selection for action. Not necessarily to know stuff about the world, not knowledge or truth or anything. It's just we live in a world where we have to take action. And attention is selection from lots of things so that we can achieve our aims and purposes in the world. And so right at the very heart of what we mean by attention is selection. Now there's many different media, many different senses out there. I'm going to be talking mainly about eyes because that's what we can measure very, very easily. There's also, we have ears, and also we have touch and smell. There's attention is not limited to eye movements. You can have haptic attention just as much. But what I'm going to talk about is visual attention and the differences in visual attention across media. And to do that, I'm going to talk through what we call the attention funnel. Lumen has developed some software that turns this webcam here, or the same webcam on your mobile phone, into a high quality eye tracking camera. That means that we can get people to download our software and then track what it is that they could have seen on their computers or their phones and what they did in fact end up looking at. We also do studies about TV and cinema. Recently we've done one about radio, which is a bit strange for an eye tracking company to do that. We've never done anything specifically about the medium of DM as a whole, but we have done lots of individual DM projects, and I'll talk about some of those at the end. But having got this technology that tracks the eyes, we then need some sort of units to understand what's happening here. So we measure all the impressions that reach the screen, and if these things are technically viewable to the standards set up by the MRC, the Media Ratings Council, a sort of self-appointed quango in New York, and we measure all of that stuff. That sort of measures the opportunity to see. But what we're really interested in is, did anyone look? The percentage of people who actually look at these things, and how long do they look at it for? And then we try and combine that into a composite metric, which I'll talk about in a second. You see here on this heat map, people will be really leaving standard, looking at pictures. And here at the bottom is an ad. And even from the heat map of attention, we see that perhaps not everyone has looked at that ad. And in actual fact, this is quite normal. For most digital ads, what we see is that you might have 51% of the ads, technically speaking, viewable, but only 9% of them actually get looked at, and often for a very short amount of time. So to bring this to life, I thought perhaps I could just talk you through lots of different media here. Now, these slides are very busy. There's lots and lots of data here. They've been made available to the DMA, and they're yours to download if you. We can even send you the core data behind this. But we've got some data around TV, stuff about YouTube, in-stream video and TEEDS, which is a rich media digital format, some press, some work we've done with out of home, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and banner advertising. We've got many, many more, but this is a busy enough slide as it is. And what we see here is the first thing is, are these ads viewable or not? Are they actually on screen for long enough to sort of count? And the first thing to notice here is that, look at this TV stuff. All the TV ads appear on the screen. How come they're not all viewable? Well, that's because our cameras and data, when we do these research, pick up the fact that sometimes there's no one in the room to watch the TV ads. People have gone off to make a cup of tea, or they've fallen asleep in front of the TV. Just because the ad is viewable doesn't mean that that's only half of it. There has to be a human there to view it as well. But that's the sort of possibility of being viewed. What's much more important is if anyone actually looks at this stuff or not. And here we see even bigger differences. This is where things get slightly more interesting, because even if people are in the room for TV and they're awake, not everyone is looking. About half the people look at 30-second ads and about the same for 20-second ads. That's very different for other media. Out-of-home ads are all cited to be 100% viewable, but even if they're 100% viewable, they don't always get looked at there. But there's also some interesting little anomalies here. Look, some of these TEEDS ads are getting more attention than technical viewability, or same with Facebook. How the hell can that be? Well, that's because some media are playing out, and you're in the room or you're available to hear it, but you just ignore it. TV is like that. It can be playing in the background, and it can be almost like radio mode. You're there, you can hear it, but it's the A of the AV experience that you're getting. It's not quite the full thing. Whereas other times when you're on Facebook, you scroll so fast that the ads are not on screen for long enough for you to be classed as technically viewable, but very they can be clocked. But that does suggest quite immediately that people are not looking at these things for very long, and this is the second half of the attention debate, because it isn't just about whether people notice you for a long time. It's how long they notice you for that really influences things as well. And this is really, really important to understand. Now, like I said, I don't have lots and lots of data about DM, but I think you guys can probably guess that when people do pick up DM, when it becomes viewable, not all of it does, obviously, but when it does become viewable, it is probably viewed for a very, very long time. And this is particularly important for us to understand, because TV ads They don't get 30 seconds of attention. They might get about 12 or so, but it's a damn sight longer than Facebook or Instagram or so on. Now, I said that you could combine this data to make sure you have one number, not just percentage of viewing and how long they looked at it for. But you can combine those things to work out how much attention in general do you get from 1,000 impressions. And because media is bought and sold in 1,000, we thought that would be a useful thing to do. And this suddenly means that you have a composite sort of aggregate amount of attention for media planners to look on. And again, I think this is going to be something that DM will do very well. Perhaps not everyone looks at every single piece, but they look at it for so long that the aggregate amount of attention is going to be very, very high. And may well be higher than TV on a per impression basis. But the reason why this is so important is that not only do people, you want a measure to compare between media like that, but also to trade on this basis. Because if you start looking at the volume of attention, the aggregate amount of attention that is generated, you can start working out where the bargains are. Here's a simplified version of the previous slide, but with some CPM, some cost per thousand data here. And you can see that press is looking pretty expensive, but TV is also looking pretty expensive versus digital display. But if you add in the layer of attention, what you can see is that in actual fact, TV and press are suddenly bargains in comparison to many digital formats, because they generate so much more attention than their equivalents. And lots of media agencies are now using this. Now, as Imad said, we've done a lot of work to see the relationship between attention and outcomes. It's not an absolutely linear thing. 2 seconds of attention is not worth twice 1 second of attention, and 20 seconds is not worth 10 times 2. There's a curve here, and there are many other factors that go into it about creative and targeting and so on. But recall and choice does seem to correspond quite nicely to attention and quite consistently. But the media is only part of the story, and the creative is the other half of that. And so when we have been doing work on the process to improve DM, it's usually on trying to understand how people engage with the creative to give you an unfair share of attention, making your DM pieces work as well as possible within the time constraints and attention constraints they have. But we can talk a little bit more about that in the next section. I'm going to pass back to the guys to talk about some.
All right, thanks so much, Mike. That's really good. That's fascinating stuff. Now, let me pass over to another of our VIPs today, one of the authors of this fantastic report, the wonderful Amanda Griffiths, who's Head of Insight and Planning at Royal Mail Marketreach, where she champions direct mail and its continuing power as a modern media channel for brands in the digital age. Prior to Marketreach, she had a long agency career as a communications and strategic planner at many of London's and the UK's top direct marketing agencies across nearly every category. Let me now pass over to Amanda.
Thanks, Stephen. It's really interesting. It was great that Mike ended up on his last slide, because what I wanted to talk about today is that we were so pleased to see how much attention the research showed mail getting. But I think it's important to remember that that doesn't happen by accident. It's important to consider how mail gets that attention and how to build that attention and the value that you can achieve from it. So a set of facts that came out of the research is that more attention is important because it leads to more response. And for a channel like mail that's heavily response driven, that becomes critical. So what we saw is we were able to separate the mail from a low to mid attention achieving to a higher attention achieving, and the higher level was over 126 seconds, which is pretty impressive in itself. But what's even more impressive is when you could get to those levels of attention for your mail, you were able to deliver 60% more responses than you were with the low to mid-level. So getting that attention and holding on to that attention over time, and we know it's multiples going back to mail 2-3 times, is critical to being able to the importance of mail. But what's good news for all of you is that there are endless ways to use mail to connect with your audience. So unsurprisingly, to those of you who are familiar with mail, the most important is, of course, vouchers and promotional offers. Who doesn't like a deal? And that's guaranteed to get people to pay attention and hold attention onto your mail pack. But what's also interesting are the next couple of issues that we identified as being very important to consumers in terms of what they're looking for in mail. And it fascinated us that the next one is that your mail is clear and easy to read. So it's not just about throwing lots of stuff in there and getting it to get attention. It's about helping people understand what you're talking about, what you want them to do, and helping them to guide to it, which is the next piece. It's asking me to do something. So it's being very clear about, do you want them to scan a QR code, use a URL, make a phone call, pay a bill? What is it you're asking people to do? So lots of ways mail can help. And Mike gave us this wonderful quote that's in the report that says, mail is incredibly diverse. You have 15-second unskippable YouTube ads or half-page newspaper ads, but there's no equivalent with mail. The world is your oyster. Because of the variety of the medium, you can get 4 or 5 times more attention. So there's huge opportunity in mail to think about different ways to get attention, because in its essence, the whole point of mail is that it's an attention grabber because it does some very special things as a media channel. It's uniquely effective because it's personal, because it typically has someone's name or address on it, or is heavily invested in using someone's data to create a really personal message. It comes into the home, it gets opened and looked at exceptionally high levels, 70, 80, 90%. And so it creates a real standout for wherever you're using it within your customer journey in a trusted way. Consumers continuously report that it's a really welcome break for them in a busy, busy digital world. It's physical, it's sensory, you can touch it, you can feel it. Sometimes you can smell or even hear it. And also it's a medium that fits into a consumer's life. It comes into their home, but because of its physicality, you can put it aside and go back to it when it's the right time for you. It moves around the house. So you can put it in the living room, you can put it on your fridge, you can put it next to your computer. So you deal with it when you're ready to do that. But it's not just that it is a break in a digital world, because it's incredibly connected to the digital world. It has a really strong role to play in the customer journey and the customer experience. It delivers information that's driving action. So the purpose of mail is to send people online to continue their journey, to take an action, whether that be a purchase or a donation or paying a bill. It gets people to take action and do the things you want them to do. And this last slide is just to reinforce Mike's wonderful quote, showing that there's an endless set of ways that mail can grab attention. And this is just the smallest handful of them. But by being visually engaging, by being simple and clear, by being highly personalized, mail is a great way to tell your story and grab attention. And I'm going to now pass back to Stephen, who's going to introduce Lucy, who's going to tell us a great example of how to use mail well to get attention.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Amanda. That's really powerful data. So I'm now going to pass over, as Amanda said, to Lucy, one of our expert contributors to this fantastic piece of research, and to talk us through a wonderful case study that really brings to life everything we've heard today. Having spent 25 years getting under the skin of our clients' customers, understanding the behavioural science behind what they do, Lucy has experience at some of the UK's best agencies, including EHS Brand, RAT, KitKat, Knorr and Digitas, and iconic brands such as VW, Tesco, RBS, EAA, UNICEF, British Gas and Bupa. And she's now Executive Head of Strategy at Havas CX Helia, and is going to talk to us about a wonderful case study now all around Toolstation. Look forward to it, Lucy.
Thanks so much, Stephen, for the lovely introduction. So yeah, I'm delighted to be able to talk to you today about how all of this really good research and data and insight we've heard from the team today actually comes to life and has been practically applied for our client, Toolstation. And this is really about how, by giving our key trade customers more attention, we're able to gain and maintain more of their attention as well. So for those of you who don't know, Havas CX Helia, we're the CX agency within the Havas network, and we started working with Toolstation back in 2020. They were one of those brands who actually had a really good COVID, because suddenly they acquired a lot of DIY customers to their traditionally trade customer base, and they approached us wanting to know how they should kind of retain and engage those different groups of customers differently. And one of the key work streams that we undertook, in particular for their trade customers, was looking at catalogue migration. So this was observing that their traditional catalogue. So for those who don't know Toolstation, it's a catalogue business, a little bit like Argos was back in the day. So they have this kind of 800-page catalogue that you can see on the left here that gets mailed out 4 times a year to their customer base. But what we had been able to observe was that with over 17,000 products contained within that catalogue, 21 different departments that you could shop, it was actually quite a cumbersome, bulky, complicated way to shop Toolstation. And there's potential for further customer frustration if, for example, you spend time trawling through that catalogue only to find when you get in store that the product that you want is out of stock. So it didn't represent the best possible way for customers to shop Toolstation. For Toolstation itself, it was clearly kind of expensive for them to produce. So we needed to find a better way, both for clients and customer. And what became clear was that actually that better way to shop Toolstation already existed in the shape of their website. But we conducted a huge amount of research kind of underpinning this catalogue migration strategy, including ethnography, which was really valuable to us to help us understand the role that catalogue was playing in tradespeople's lives. And although it was bulky, although it was cumbersome, although it was slow, there was still this really strong instinct to reach for the catalogue. Some of them described it to us as their kind of trade Bible. And it became clear to us that we were going to kind of, and this probably sounds counterintuitive, but we would need to harness this instinct to still reach for a kind of physical paper pack in order to drive those customers online, to help them have that superior experience online, to benefit from the website, and also the kind of market leading click and collect proposition that Toolstation were able to offer those customers. And one of the key concepts at the heart of when we talk to clients about attention marketing, quite often what we're talking to them about is the meaningful value exchange that sits at the heart of that relationship. So when we're asking for a customer's attention, we need to think not only about what is the value in it for the client business. So in the case of Toolstation, this can't simply just be about driving more frequent online shops. We also have to think about the value to the customer and what's in it for them in exchange for that valuable attention. And what the research helped us to understand that was really, for these tradespeople, time is money. It sounds like a cliche, but for every moment that they're off the job, it's fundamentally, it's costing them. So time spent kind of trawling through a bulky catalogue, going to store, finding products out of stock, all of that is, you know, a real cost to their businesses. And so that was something that we needed to address and put right for them. And so we imagined My Tool Station as the solution, which is this very kind of inconspicuous little sticker that you can see here. But it was actually a really, really beautifully crafted and hardworking pack. And I think, you know, Amanda touched on it earlier, that in order to gain customers' attention, which DM does so effectively, you really need to give that DM sort of due care and attention through its development. So there were a number of elements that made this pack really, really smart. So the first of those elements was there was a really smart piece of data analysis that underpinned this piece of work. So what we were able to understand was that of those 21 departments across Toolstation, actually the average customer only shopped 6 of those departments. So rather than giving them that great big bulky catalogue with a load of stuff that wasn't necessarily relevant to them, we were able to connect each individual customer with their 6 most shopped departments, so they could connect immediately with the products, the services that were most relevant and important to them. We were also able to harness the power of the QR code, which had a real resurgence during COVID. It gained widespread adoption, and that QR code has been, you know, fundamentally important in helping us to connect offline and online channels, so connecting direct mail with the website. And for us, it wasn't enough to just present that QR code as a bundle of pixels. Actually, what we wanted to do was to create visually impactful QR codes. We worked with a partner called Deliver, so that the QR code itself represented the department that it was linking out to. So you can see a lovely example here. If I was clicking through to lighting, the QR code looks like a light bulb. So it's visually appealing, and also it kind of screams to those time poor tradespeople that this is a shortcut that's going to get them where they need to be quickly. And finally, this wasn't just a flat DM pack. We actually created these QR codes as heavy-duty stickers. So tradespeople were able to attach them wherever they needed Toolstation most. So it may be that they stuck them to the dashboard of their van, they may stick them to their toolbox, but essentially wherever they needed Toolstation and those links to the website, they were to hand and convenient, again, saving them time. And this campaign's been hugely successful for Toolstation. It was effective in increasing web traffic, driving frequency, and ultimately increasing revenue per customer by reducing that kind of 800-page catalogue down to a 6-page DM pack. We've been able to deliver an annualised cost saving of £1 million to the Toolstation business. And importantly for me, we've also been able to save just over 4,000 trees every year, but it represents a return on investment of 3 to 1. And I think, you know, other testament to the success of this pack, it's a part of an ongoing campaign. It's been adopted by other Toolstation markets across France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and forms part of an ongoing strategy to migrate customers away from the catalogue, but into those other channels and touch points that are really effective in gaining and maintaining their attention moving forwards. And that's it from me. I'll hand you back to Stephen to wrap up.
Brilliant, Lucy. That's fantastic. Now, I think we're going to bring all our panel back now for our questions as soon as they're ready. And let me kick off, if that's okay, with a question for you, Imad. I think that, you know, you are the effectiveness guru. That's what WARC's all about. You know, nobody is looking at effectiveness more globally than you guys are. You know, phenomenal expertise. Talk a bit about mail uplifting across every stage of the funnel, right? Which is really, really powerful stuff. You know, that presumably doesn't happen very often. And, you know, is that because, in your view, the reason it's uplifting across every stage of the funnel, is it because of this slightly more dynamic, non-linear approach to, you know, the way people buy these days? As you said rightly, it's not a funnel in the classic sense. It's not linear anymore. It's dynamic. Is that because mail is dip in and out, and you go backward, you review it, you come back to it, you consider it? Is that one of the reasons you think it's working across every stage or not?
Yeah, so firstly, I wouldn't kind of bill myself as an effectiveness guru, but I appreciate the compliment. But yeah, I think a lot of kind of mail's potential, and when you're thinking about a media plan, there are so many different factors there. Whether what's in keeping with the brand, so many different things that factor into a media plan or the media mix. I think what mail does really well is it's able to amplify the other media. So Lucy's just shown a great example of how mail played really nicely alongside digital channels, for example. And I think just that ability for mail to go side by side with lots of other forms of media means that it can work through the funnel, but it can also complement other channels through that funnel too. And there's actually a great example from TalkTalk, which is in the white paper. TalkTalk kind of used things like out of home and social and some other channels to help educate an audience around kind of full fiber broadband, and then used mail at the end as kind of its convert pieces, as the channel that would help the transaction. And I think there are lots of other examples out there where mail is able to complement other media in the mix, but also just through some of the creativity that Lucy showed, can also just play a slightly different role to the other channels as well that are in that mix to help people through that path to purchase.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And just to say, actually, there's a question in the chat about can we have a copy of the slides, and they're going to be sent out, by the way, in the next couple of days by the DMA. And also, of course, this wonderful white paper is available on the Royal Mail Marketreach website to download at any stage as well. So it has those case studies, as you mentioned, Imad, of TalkTalk and various others, as well as the contributions. So Lucy, just passing on to you then on that, because I mean, Imad makes a very good point about the additive nature, and the fact that, everyone's living lives of this, where it's the physical and the digital working together, which is obviously something that you've absolutely crystallized and brought to life with that fantastic, powerful case study for Toolstation. Is that, if you like, why it's a new time for direct mail, because it is able to actually bring together those two aspects of people's lives, particularly young lives as well, isn't it? Because actually there's so much evidence that demonstrates that direct mail works particularly well amongst the younger audience as well.
Yeah, we've definitely seen that to be true for a number of different clients. I think, really aggravated by COVID, if you like, where all of us were leading so much of our lives online. We were necessarily kind of shopping online. We were meeting with colleagues and friends online. We continue to date online, like a lot of those online behaviors have stayed. But what it means is that physical experience has become super important. And actually, we've seen that, as you say, particularly for younger customers and younger consumers who are living so much of their lives online, the opportunity to have those kind of really tangible, tactile experiences that direct mail can provide are really, really valued. And what we've seen from the research is that people will stop other things that they're doing in their lives, take the time to kind of really interact and engage with those. And it's hugely, hugely valuable. And so I always talk to clients about, kind of key moments throughout the customer experience that we're creating for their customers, and thinking about where there may be moments where we want to introduce mail into the mix alongside other channels and touch points to really create those moments of elevation where customers or prospective customers really want to spend time with the brand and our message.
Yeah, brilliant. That's great. Mike, one of the areas that I know that you touched on today, and I know is in the report, is talk a bit about the sort of the multi-sensory nature of direct mail, which I think is really interesting. All the work you do around, the psychology and attention through the work that you do at Lumen. And can you just talk to us a little bit more about that? Because is that a lot of the magic of mail for you, in the sense that it works across all the different senses? Is that one of the reasons why the attention is so strong?
I think there's a lot to be said for that. I think there's a lot to be said for that. As I said, the data that I presented here is just about eyes, and I'm sure when we do work to understand how people engage with DM, there's a lot of visual attention, and that might be a response because there's also other attention going on, but we're really measuring the visual attention, but there might be this whole other world on top of that. But what I think is particularly interesting is how attention turns into memory and action. And there's a lot of research going on at the moment about how attention and memory is embodied within the person. Lots of educational research now saying that getting kids to write stuff down directly with a pen is much more memorable than typing on a screen, or physically engaging with things has a means of engaging the sort of the pathways that lead to memory encoding. So my feeling would be, and again, this is not supported by data, but certainly put in the context of all the other work that we've done, is that not only are you going to get lots and lots of a quantity of attention from direct mail, but the quality of that stuff, the engagement of it, because it's so well targeted, because it's voluntary and people are deliberately engaging with it, and finally, because it probably involves more than one sensory pathway, that it would be unsurprising to me if DM was doubly or trebly memorable in comparison to screen-based media.
That's really, really fascinating stuff. And I expect it also reflects the way we are as humans, isn't it? We know that there's all sorts of neuroscience to say when you actually touch somebody and you are physically with somebody, it's a powerful thing as opposed to being as we are now on a screen, isn't it? So that would make sense. That's really interesting. There's a question actually coming from the floor from Louise Bailey from Avios, and I was going to pass it over to Amanda if that's okay. It's, do you have any advice for a business that isn't using DM at all right now and might receive pushback from a sustainability point of view if you were looking to reintroduce DM? Amanda, would you be happy to take that question?
Sure. I mean, we've done a lot of research into this area, as has every media owner these days. And what's critical that is important for mail that people can forget is it's a highly sustainable medium. All of the paper now comes from sustainable forests, so it's recyclable 6, 7, 8 times. So actually, most of the mail that you're receiving at the moment is probably on recycled paper rather than original paper. And as an industry, the print industry is becoming extremely knowledgeable about identifying sustainable inks, using paper efficiently, all of that. So there's quite a lot of information on our website for people who are concerned about that, but feel confident that what's going on with mail is something that you can be confident in sustainably. Brilliant.
Thanks, Amanda. That's really helpful. Lucy, when you were talking before about making sure that, as you say, that the work that you've done with Toolstation is testimony to this understanding of how people interact these days in a physical perspective. Just as an agency, how do you ensure that DM gets equal billing in the agency? You know what I mean? So that makes sure that there isn't that sense that let's automatically do something digital because it's new. How do you make sure from a process perspective in the agency that direct mail is always up there, equally with any other channel?
So I suppose the first thing to say is that an agency, we're kind of media agnostic, so we will always choose the channels and the touch points that are really right for the customer. And I suppose that's the key thing for us, is we really start with the customer and understanding where they are in their lives, where our kind of messages are going to be most appropriate, most relevant, most welcome, and choosing those channels and touch points accordingly. So and we've heard so much today about the way that those different channels work in combination, and so that's super important as well, is that we're not just considering one channel or touch point in isolation, but we're thinking about the overarching customer experience and how all of those different touch points combine to drive the behaviors that we're looking for from those customers.
Brilliant. Yeah, be agnostic. Absolutely. Imar, there was a question that came in earlier when you were presenting from Mercedes Mollett from After Marketing, saying, what role did creative play in brand recall? Would you like to comment on that at all in terms of the research you did? Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll probably hand over to Mike in a moment, but
Yeah,
Denzel
Mike.
and Lewin were
Yeah.
behind it. But I suppose in terms of the role of creativity, and Lucy showed it in her example, and there
Yeah.
are other examples in the white paper as well. As well as kind of the media plan and the layout, obviously the creativity behind the mail piece is an important way of making it resonate. If you look at things like research from Paul Dyson around the top 10 drivers of advertising profitability, creative is up there as the second biggest factor, right? So of course it's important, and you can get creative with mail as well, as we see in the white paper. I think is it Sun Life used smelly mail, so kind of attracted dogs and cats to kind of interact with the mail piece through, I think, sort of peppermint for cats and bacon for dogs. And then you've got IKEA with their join the dots vouchers as well, so very kind of, to Lucy's point, very tangible. So there are ways that you can think beyond some of the more traditional preconceptions, if you like, of what a mail piece should look like, and get more creative with it, and therefore resonate in a more impactful way. But to the actual research itself, yeah, I'll hand over to Mike to explain some of the background to that.
Mike, go for it.
Well, the point of the truth of the matter is that people don't just look at boxes on a screen or pieces of paper that they're given. They look at the content that they are presented with. No one has to look at the advertising on their computer or their phone, and frequently they don't. There's a potential chance that they will, and there are patterns in the data. But that just because we observe that there are averages out there, doesn't mean you will absolutely guarantee that people will look at this or engage with it. The biggest factor about whether people will look at all, and definitely how long they look at things, is the creative work. And that is a sort of double-edged factor there. One is what you present people with. Is it beautiful or interesting or fun or relevant? And then secondly, who is it that you're presenting it to? The targeting of things, because what is beautiful and funny and relevant to one person may not be as useful or relevant or even engaging to another. And so the creative is tremendously important, and part and parcel of that creative effect is the targeting. This is why I think that the DM industry is sort of a number of steps ahead of many other media in understanding, as we saw from Lucy's presentation, about the power of creativity, and really understanding how that sort of going with the grain of people's experience, and working out the right time to talk in the right way to people. So that's one part of it. But the second thing is your commitment to targeting and relevance, which I think other industries, other sections of the marketing industry are sort of catching up with, but has obviously always been right at the heart of direct mail.
Thanks, Mike. That's fantastic. Well, that's really, really good. I think we're almost out of time, actually. Absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much. I'm not going to summarize all the amazing insights that I've written down, because I think they've all been there. And as I say, this report exists on the Royal Mail Marketreach site. It also is going to be, this presentation is going to be sent around by the DMA. I want to thank all the amazing speakers today. I want to thank Royal Mail Marketreach again for making it possible. I want to thank to everyone listening today. We had a couple of hundred people listening in today, a fantastic number of people. Thank you very much. As I say, this webinar is going to be available. Also, just to say, a lot of other great resources on the DMA website, such as our Department of Education boot camps, which are wonderfully good value at the moment. Just put a plug in for that. But basically, also please rate us today. Thank you everyone again for listening. Thank you to our amazing contributors. I'm sorry we got to wrap up so fast, but we could have talked forever, because there are just so many wonderful insights today, and so much about the power of direct mail. And certainly, I think the best course of action now is to go forth and unleash the magic of mail. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Thank you. Bye.